ladies, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who do not know, I am Brianna, aka Dollface PA. Lovely to see you guys again. Today we are going to be talking about the big test. And so I get a lot of questions about this. Obviously, PA school, which is what I spoke about in my last video, is super challenging, but it's all for nothing if you can't pass the PANCE, right? So for those of you who do not know, the PANCE, P-A-N-C-E, stands for Physician Assistant National Certification Exam. And at the end of your physician assistant program, you are required to take this test in order to be able to practice. And so as I explained a little bit in my previous video, for those of you who may be new, I took my PANCE the first opportunity that I got, which is 7 days after graduation. That's the soonest that the boards will allow you to take it. And I was so anxious to get it over with. And I knew that I couldn't officially accept my conditional job offer until I passed the boards. So I wanted to take mine right away. So the biggest question I get was, how did I study? Did I pass the first time? I'm going to go through all of that. Yes, I did pass the first time. Did I study? Yes, I studied a lot. And I was very, very nervous going into it. But I'm going to share some resources with you that I felt were pivotal in helping me pass the PANCE. So first thing you're going to need is one of these. So I went and bought a little, what is this, a 1 inch or a ½ inch? I think this is a 1 inch binder. And I don't know about you guys, but I am a very visual person. And I'm like a hand to mind person. Like the only way I'm really able to retain information is to write it down. So I am a write it down highlighter type of girl. And this is the actual binder that I use to study for my boards. And so I went through body system by body system. I started with HENT. Head, eyes, ears, nose, and throat. And as you can see, I highlighted things, and this binder's a little old, but yeah, this is what I did. And so I wanted to show you what books I used to create this binder. So obviously when I created this binder, it was just a whole bunch of blank pieces of paper. There are 2 books that I got off Amazon that came highly recommended to me. The PANCE Prep Pearls and the PANCE PANRE question book. And when I tell y'all, my mentor told me that if I use these 2 books to study, there's no way I would fail the PANCE. And I believed her, and she was right. A lot of times I get questions about, well, do you think it's worth your while to spend, they offer a lot of PANCE preparation courses for $800 where you go away for a weekend and they do this crash course. In my opinion, I do not learn well like that. And so I did not feel that it was necessary. I do know people who took it and thought that it was helpful. On the other hand, I also know people who took it and they felt that they would have passed the PANCE regardless if they took that course or not. So I think that's a personal decision for me. I would never spend the money to take a course like that. I felt like using these 2 books and the method that I'm going to go through with you all was more than sufficient for me to pass the PANCE. Okay, and so I do want to, give you guys a disclaimer that the method that I'm getting ready to go through is very tedious. And in all honesty, it took me about 6 weeks. And, originally when I first started this method, I used to think to myself oh my goodness, this is so time consuming. But then one day I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, you're never ever going to do anything more important in your whole life. This is the most important test you will ever take in your life. So I think it's worth the time. If you know that by doing this method, it will allow you to pass the PANCE, I personally felt like it was worth it. So let me show you how I started. The first thing is this golden book. This book can be found on Amazon. I'm not really sure how much it is now, but I believe when I bought it a few years back when I was preparing for my boards, it was no more than $30. And this is not a sponsored video, but if y'all want to sponsor me, holla at your girl. So the PANCE Prep Pearls is an excellent book. And the reason why it's excellent is because it goes through every body system and it is conveniently organized to where it goes in the order in which the topics are most prevalent on the exam. So as I had stated in my last video, cardiology is the most abundant subject matter on the PANCE, and that is the first chapter, followed by pulmonology, then gastrointestinal, and it just goes in order like that. And so for chapter 1, let me see. This is literally how I started. I started with chapter 1, which was cardiology, which I explained in my last video. I struggled a lot with cardiology, so I spent a lot of time just on chapter 1. So it literally goes through everything. It goes through everything. And you can see, again, I'm very visual, so I was highlighting as I was going through. And it is a very, very condensed format of everything you need to know about cardiology for this test. So this is where my pink binder comes in. As I was going through reading stuff, I knew that there was some stuff that I didn't feel very comfortable with, or stuff that I knew that I was going to want to review. I would write that down here. I would write that down in my pink binder. So it was almost as if I was doing a double reinforcement, because I would read it and highlight it in the book. And then if I still didn't feel like I would remember it, I would write it down in my binder. And I also organized my binder by subject matter, the same way this book is organized. So for some reason, that book starts with HEENT, but it used to have cardiology in the front. I don't know what happened to it. And so that is what I did. And it took me a really long time to get through cardiology, because I really wanted to go through it and ensure that I knew everything about it. And I'm not really exactly sure the amount of time I spent on it, but I started by making a schedule. So I knew I had 6 weeks before my test. So I said, okay, in week 1, I need to get through cardiology, pulmonology, and gastrointestinal. And I knew that I was going to need a little bit more time with cardiology and a little less time with pulmonology and GI, because I'm very strong in those areas. So in that 1 week, I said, okay, I'll spend 4 days on cardiology, and then in 3 days, I'll just bang out pulmonology and GI. And I kind of did that for each week. So I literally had a schedule written out that like kept me on track, so that I knew that I would be able to get through all the subject matter by the date of my test. Because once the date of my test was set, that was set in stone. And so like I kind of was like up against the clock, but it's a catch-22, because you don't want to study too early, because then you won't remember the subject matter for the test. So it's kind of like, it's tricky, because you have to do it to where you do it soon enough to the test to where you remember it, but you don't do it so far out that you won't even remember the material by the time you get to the test. So I did that for every single body system, including the pharmacology section, which I felt was very useful for the PANCE as well, because there's a lot of pharmacology on the test. And ultimately, by the time I got through this entire book, I had a nice little comprehensive binder of my own handwritten things, acronyms, anything that would help me to remember whatever I struggled to remember. And so me being the OCD person that I am, despite me having this lovely organized binder that was created by yours lovely, I still wanted to be certain that I could recall the information, because it's one thing to memorize information, but it's another thing to recall the information. So that's where this book comes in handy. Once I finished going through this book, and once I finished creating my binder, I had about 1 week left until my test, and I went through this entire book. There's over 300 questions. They're all multiple choice, and it is very, very similar to what I saw on the PANCE. And this was so helpful for me, because I was going through, and to my surprise, I was getting a lot of the questions right, which was very, very, very encouraging for me, because it made me feel like, wow, like, yeah, you spent a lot of time studying, but it obviously paid off, because this is very, very similar to the big test, and you killing these questions, girl. And so, but I don't want to make it seem like there weren't some that I was missing, because there were some questions that I would get to and I would be like, I have absolutely no idea what the answer to that question is. Thankfully, all the answers are in the back of the book. So if I didn't know the answer, I would just look it up in the back of the book, and all of the answers are accompanied by an explanation. So for all of the questions that I got wrong, I would read the explanation, and I would write something in my pink binder to either jog my memory for that particular subject or whatever it was that I was missing in that concept, I would make sure to write it down, and I would write the number of that question down. So once I got through all 300 questions, I ended up going back and reviewing the questions that I missed. Y'all, I know this sounds like really psycho, and like some people are probably watching this video saying, oh, it doesn't take all that. But I'm telling you, one thing about me, when something needs to get done, it's going to get done. And to me, passing this test was do or die. Like, I could not afford to fail this test. So I was willing to do whatever it took to pass it. And so, yes, this did take me hours. This took me days, but I felt very, very well prepared for the PANCE after going through these questions, after going through this entire book, and I was able to do it in 6 weeks. As I stated earlier, my advice would be to go through and make a schedule and make a realistic schedule. For me, I knew that I wasn't going to be doing anything else other than this. I wasn't going to be going out with my friends. I wasn't going to be hanging out. I wasn't going to be traveling. I wasn't working because I was still in school, but school had like really slowed down because we were done with clinicals. So I really had time to focus on just this. And so I made a realistic schedule for myself. And I even broke it down to the hours. Like, okay, in week 1, I'm going to spend 4 days on cardiology, 3 days on pulmonology and GI. For day 1 for cardiology, between the hours of this and this, or if I didn't want to put the hours, I would just say I'm going to spend 6 hours doing cardiology on this day. On this day, I'm going to spend 7 hours on cardiology. And I got very, very intentional and very specific, and I made it realistic. Like, if it was a Sunday and I knew I probably wanted to take a little bit easier, I would say, okay, I'm gonna only do 3 hours on Sunday because I need some time to myself. So you just do whatever works for you, but make it realistic, make it something that's attainable, and stick to it. This requires discipline, but if you make it to this point, I know you're disciplined, because if you're not disciplined, you won't even make it through the program, as I already stated before. So I know you're disciplined. I know you can do this. It's mind over matter. You're going to be scared to death. I still remember how fast my heart was beating, waiting to go into the testing center to take this test. But one thing is for certain, I started going through that test. I was beasting those questions. By the time I got finished with the test, I was like, there's still so much time left. Like, I'm kind of scared that I finished so fast. So I went through and I rechecked all the answers. When I took the PANCE was 300 questions. And I don't remember the exact number, but there is a certain amount of field questions on the test, which are questions that do not count at all. The questions don't count towards the test. They're testing the questions out to see if they would be good future PANCE questions. And a lot of the time you'll see those questions and it's like, I've never even heard of any of this before. Don't let those questions freak you out because they don't count. So I think that's also another confidence booster. Sometimes I will come across a question on the PANCE and I'm like, I have no idea what this means. Oh my gosh, I'm going to fail. No, you're not going to fail. You just have to know that it's a field question and keep going because the test is time. And so you're up against the clock. Go in there, be confident, know that you can do this. In all honesty, you have to miss a lot of questions to fail the PANCE. And I don't want to quote a specific number because I don't know what that number is. But what I do know is that my class had 100% pass rate. The class before mine, in the graduating class of 2017, had 100% pass rate. Granted, we had an excellent program, but what I'm saying is that I do believe that if you put the effort forth that's needed, maybe not even in the capacity in which I did, but if you put forth the effort, I think even just buying this book alone and going through this book, maybe questions isn't your thing. I would say if you had to choose between one of these, go with this one and go through it. And mind you, this is all information you've seen before because you've completed the program. So it's not like it's new information. It's simply a review. And it's all compiled together. It's all concise. If you can get through this book and you know this information, you will pass the PANCE. And no, I really sound like I'm sponsored by them, but I'm serious because I don't really know how else I would have studied if I didn't have one resource where everything was concisely organized and easily readable. It's so easy. They have mnemonics in here. They have little tricks of ways to remember things. This book was everything and more for me passing the PANCE. So this is the secret for the PANCE. If you guys have any questions at all about the PANCE, I'm happy to answer them. You can hit me up. Guys know all of my social media is the same, Brianna Moore. You can email me at thedollfacepa@gmail.com. Happy to answer questions always. Go in there and kill this test. Make that test your you-know-what. You don't be afraid of that test, because I'm telling you, you can and you will pass that test, okay? So for those of you who need a little bit of encouragement, let me know. I got you. I love y'all. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to tune in for my next video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And you doll babies, be safe. Be blessed.